Hey, what up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Future Figuarts. Last time we took a look at a certain psychotic pink juvenile delinquent whom I think is bound to come to the line sooner or later. Now, this is a unique episode because it's the first sort of revisit to a character we've already covered way back when this series first started. And that's Bardock. Why? Well, simply because with the new Broly movie, we've got a slight aesthetic difference which could form a split between which look collectors might want to see the figure sport when it finally does come out. Because let's face it, like many other characters, is long overdue. But hey, at least we're getting a Gogeta. Can't say one thing from Future Figuarts hasn't become a reality of the present at least, right? Alright, so without further ado, let's get into taking a look at Bardock, aka Goku's dad. Can we get 200 likes for this one, ladies and gents? Okay, so Bardock. Now, we've already covered the many ways and variables classic Bardock might have in his appearance as a figure, as well as some other variations in his forms, including the what-if appearances. But with the release of the new Broly movie, Bardock's look, as well as some aspects of his temperament, seem to have changed. With that said though, if you missed the episode where we covered Bardock's original appearance, definitely go check that out now. First things first is his armor. Right out the gate, I will say that I personally much rather the look of his high contrasting green and black armor with his blood-soaked, probably disease-ridden red bandana. With the super incarnation of Bardock though, those aspects of his armor are now gone, and in its place, we've got the generic brown and black color scheme as well as shoulder pads. And I gotta say, when I thought of Bardock before, I didn't think the dude needed those. I thought of him more as a rough and tough, rugged mofo. But now, look, they've gone and made him soft. And let's be real, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it just looks weird as hell because the shoulder pads are like the same width as his hair. So to me, when I imagine this guy fighting, it looked very oblong and super awkward up top, with a wide frame, and then he just gets skinny all of a sudden, like Humpty Dumpty. Even aspects of his personality that were originally there are now gone, so let me just say that that's probably the first point in favor of me wanting the old version of Bardock if we do get him released as a figure. Now, in addition to swapping out his red forearm bands, we also see the disappearance of the ones around his calves. And again, I much rather the look of the older color scheme. I get where they may have been coming from with this, streamlining his look with the rest of the Saiyans, but come on. This milder, calmer color scheme is really not doing much for who we knew Bardock to be at all. Finally, the white boots that every other Saiyan wears are on Bardock as well, and y'all know what I'm going to say here. I hope again that this isn't the version that we're getting in Figuarts form. It just doesn't work out as well with what I imagined Bardock's character to be, man. Now, other than the clothing, I think the biggest striking difference is his new appearance, because let's be real, it's a Goku head sculpt swap with a scar, which surprisingly enough, they kept. But his tail is much more free than we previously saw. Now, whether or not I'd want this in figure form, I'm indifferent to, but I can oddly enough see that this being something collectors to complain about if we don't get a hanging tail option. Why? Just based on some of the whiny comments I've seen in the past on occasion. But really guys, I think the look of the tail with it just curled around the waist does it just fine. For Bardock anyway. He's a Saiyan of action and doesn't just stand around with his tail hanging out or with his balls most of the time, except in this new movie. Now, interestingly enough, I did talk about the possibility of them including a Super Saiyan head sculpt for Bardock as just kind of a nice fan servicey gesture. However, if they decide to go with this new version of Bardock, I wouldn't feel the same way about it. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure a lot of you younger collectors out there would just love that either way, but for an older collector like myself, it'd just be another accessory to have in the box, because again, the new movie version of Bardock isn't as intense to me, and really I've got enough Super Saiyans wearing armor and bluish tights in my display at this point. Give me the older armor and then we'll talk. Alright, so faces. Now I think Tamashii will have no choice but to keep it generic with a newer Super Bardock release, as we don't see him doing too much at all aside from talking a lot in this movie. No smirking, mocking, or anything enjoying combat like that. Man, we don't even get to see the fight leading up to Planet Vegeta's destruction in full. Speaking of which, face-wise, we only glimpsed the look of terror on Bardock's face for a couple of seconds before the animation actually fades him out. So I'd say we'd probably see a neutral face, a side-glancing neutral face, and a screaming face. Like really, not much to go with at all here. And again, I don't want to seem like I'm, not even considering the new version of Bardock at all and just hating on it, but ironically, people bash Broly's, let's call it, non-canonical version for the lack of depth in his character. And now with this new movie, we've gained character depth for Broly and lost a little bit canonically for Bardock to an extent. So for potential accessories, other than a big blue blast to depict the final attack against Frieza in the movie, I'm not too sure what else they could incorporate here. I mean, there's no bandana, no scouter, nothing really compared to the old Bardock, right? If we really wanted to be super creative, they might throw in a baby Kakarot, but why? How does that help Bardock's figure based on his new appearance? The only other thing that might be helpful is a Saiyan pod, but let's be real guys, that ain't gonna happen. If it does, I'll have to eat my words here, but I'm pretty sure I won't have to. I think the only other thing they might add in is going back to the tail, a version where it's relaxed and hanging down, not around the waist. Alright guys, so Bardock, which version do you guys want to see made into a Figuarts figure? I think you already know my preference, and I hope I communicated the reason for that well. As well as that though, what are your thoughts on Bardock's new appearance in the film? I know that due to it being a movie, we didn't have as much time to flesh out his character, but still, his character already existed prior to this film, and they've somehow managed to tone him down in my opinion. While I understand he probably won't be Battlestar crazy at home with Gine, I still think the softer side of him far outshone what we knew him before. Anyways guys, you know what I always say, may the best of your todays be the worst of your tomorrows. Peace.